computer. Okay. Recording, shares on. Oh, we got a new shirt today. Yes, Predator. Well, now we find out who's seen the original movie. Who am I portraying there? The back. What's the actor that I am standing in for in the back there?
Wayne the Rock Johnson.
No. Who was in the original Predator movie? Arnold Schwarzenegger. His arms are a little smaller than mine, and I'm way taller than he is. But I made it work. You know, if I looked any better, it would be frankly problematic, you know, for the public. I don't need people getting in car accidents over like triple, four, 3 or 4 takes extra. Whoa. Sometimes I even get trapped in the mirror walking around my house. I catch my reflection or something, and I just have to 15 minutes. I'm standing there just enamored. It's like, how do you guys let him get away with this? All right. All right. So out of curiosity, has anybody played with any of those AI tools since we introduced them last week? I know we had a couple of people mess with Claude Code. I know Logan's messing with Claude Code. What do you think? Is Claude Code any good? Do you really think that?
Only it's great to hit the quota.
Oh, okay. So it's not good if you're poor.
Yep.
It's meh if you're poor. You up your $20 a month. You can jump to the $100 a month.
Does the Boodle Box one count? Because I know that they have different AIs and stuff, and I've been trying that out. I don't know
Did
if
you
that
even pay
counts though.
attention in class when I talked about agentic AI?
Agentic AI.
She's looking at her notes. I guarantee you asked at least 5 bad questions during that class.
No, actually, I was doing pretty good. I'm still doing pretty good, actually.
You're asking me right now if Boodlebox counts compared to like Claude Code CLI.
Well, I don't think you heard
OpenClaw.
my question,
No,
sir.
I did.
My
You said,
question,
does Boodlebox count because it has other
yeah,
stupid stuff in it?
yeah. Doesn't it contain what has ChatGPT? It has like banana something, and then it has another AI.
And what's the banana something? Do you even know what the banana something is?
It's a different type of AI. You explained it. Where basically, like the AI, it needs to have a brain, and you basically give it a brain. That way, it can work.
That's OpenClaw. It's another product.
It's well, I don't know.
Nano Banana is
Yes.
Google, is Gemini's image creation API or AI. So if you go to Gemini and you type in, make me an image that's such and such, it'll say switching to Nano Banana.
Okay. That's not the one I was trying, though. I can't remember, but it works a little bit like it actually works much better for coding and other math related issues than ChatGPT does for sure.
So you didn't try any of the agents like we discussed.
I hate to break it to you, Dr.
I
Whitman,
believed
but
it. I knew it right from the get-go, actually. Before you even started talking, I knew you did. You specifically must not have done that.
don't worry, I'll be there.
What's this?
AI. It's like hallucinates,
Coffee hallucinates. Is she an old AI? She probably ran out of quota and she's doing budget pleaser like you.
No.
So would you say that if you had Claude Code with infinite quota, it would be pretty good?
It's pretty good. It did struggle a lot to translate that app, the Claude Climate.
Oh, to convert my app?
Yeah, and they'll work with Linux. It struggled a lot.
That's because Linux probably has like a 1992 X Windows API for building its Windows.
No, the C++.
So you took my working Mac application
Yeah.
for imprisoning Claude Code and telling those agents to do whatever I want, and you just put it into your Claude Code, said, convert this to C++, and you expected it to just poof work?
No, my prompt was longer than that. I said, convert something that'll work with Linux. I gave a bunch of other parameters, keeping the UI the same. Testing functionality. I'm just not good at prompt engineering, okay?
You'd be better off, in honesty, giving it screenshots of the application and generically telling it, this is what this application accomplishes, and let it make a pass on it like that. And then you can go back in and doctor up your features and make them work the way you want.
Yeah, that's what's gonna do next. I was just gonna like tell it to refer to like the UI elements, then remake
Yeah.
that UI elements.
So what we're talking about here is this app that I have that allows me to manage all my so these are different session bots for Claude Code, and then I can run servers underneath them. So I can like add a server. So here's the web server for Bible research. If I just remove that and I add that server back in, I can name it something like that. I can choose the start script for it. It has to have a -- port command line option. Add that. It spins up my server. So if my server had picked port 4002 for it, so I can click on that. It opens up the Bible Explorer app. Here's some cool stuff. Here's like Case for the Messiah. You can go through and you can look at the number of prophecies that the Jewish people thought the Messiah had to meet, and the number of ones that were undisputed, and then the ones that were disputed and why. So, like for instance, born of a virgin. If you click on that, you can see what the prophecy says. You can see here's the fulfillment of it. Here's the evidence. This is what the counter argument is for how he didn't meet it. All that stuff. If you go back out, and this is going to be up on the Quantum Disciple site here pretty soon, but I have other things like heat maps. So here's a theme heat map in the Bible. So I can say, look at the entire Bible, show me all books that deal with, let's deal with messianic prophecy. So it shows you the entire Bible here. The lighter the color, the heavier it is on that theme. So obviously Isaiah here has a lot of messianic prophecy stuff. So if you click on Isaiah, it takes you into the book of Isaiah. It gives you a time frame. So this is 740 BC to 681 BC. So across 59 years, the major characters, the major events. Here's an overview of the book. Here's the key characters and their roles, key verses. You can go and read the full text, or at any point in time, you can switch to full text here and read the whole Bible in here. This is like better than the Zondervan app, isn't it? I go back here. Bible DNA is kind of cool. This shows you how you can track different narratives through the entire Bible. Word streams. So this is certain words like love and things like that. You can see where it pops up throughout the Bible. Bible by the numbers, number of books, chapters, verses, number of words, things in the Old Testament, length of books. So you got the Psalms as the longest book with 2,461 verses, yada, yada, yada. Character map is kind of cool. So you can pick individual characters. Let's say you're interested in Abraham. It shows you all the people he's connected to. So he was married to Sarah, and then sort of kind of secondarily Hagar. You have his family. You can click on like Isaac. It shows you Isaac's map. So a cool way of identifying who begot who. Cross references. You can see what connects to what from a book perspective. Prophetic threads. This lets you go seed of the woman, suffering servant, places where you can see where an idea originated, where it was prophesied, and where it was developed, and then, where it ultimately is fulfilled at a later point in time. So you can follow those things. Prophecy calculator is kind of cool. It lets you go through and it lets you select the fulfillments. So it already checks all the ones that there isn't really a debate over, but then it lets you go down and do research into ones that you think might have some debate, decide if you think it counts, whatever. Then it shows you the probability. So the probability of Jesus, if he matches all 52 prophecies, it's a 1 in 6 to the times 10 to the 126th power for impossibility. But even if he just matches the 36 everybody agrees on, apparently it's still mathematically impossible. Theological consistency lets you see how the Bible maps out themes and how it's consistent throughout the Bible for those themes. Types and antitypes. So this shows you like Jesus versus Adam, things like that. So how people are connected to other people through typography. Oh, this shows you balance within the Bible. So across the entire Bible, this is balance of themes. Yeah, structural blueprint. I don't think it's all that helpful. But in any case, so that's that server that's running through this app that's attached to this guy. And then if I wanted to, if I want to run it publicly, I can deploy it to Gonzo Cloud, which is like my own AWS infrastructure up in the cloud. So that's named after Mr. Gonzalez. He's the little predator guy, wherever that's his. He runs a AWS competitor in the cloud. Plus, I love the name of this app.
Why do you like the name?
Huh?
Why do you like the name?
Well, it's the double entendre. It doesn't actually say anything. What it actually says is very descriptive of what the app does, but it sounds like a different word that might have additional connotations. So that way, people give a little chuckle and you say, well, why is your head in the gutter? Exactly. That's how you were feeling, right? Logan. Okay.
No comment than your comment on the name. So really, your head was good.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said my head.
No, I'm sure it is.
No, just yours.
Logan just sits around all day repeating Bible verses in his head. I've memorized the Psalms. I chant.
151 of them.
All right, so we have been talking about the different kind of classes. Today we're going to start bringing them into Unity. So we talked about this idea of a mono behavior class, which is kind of if you want your stuff to be attached to game objects, it's got to be a mono behavior. Mono behaviors give a way of initializing and then a way of handling things at different parts of points in time. We can handle them through update, which is update the entire function runs once per frame. So that's kind of like our run method from threads in Java. Whatever you put in that run method is what happens when that thread starts. Okay, so whatever is in our update method, that's what happens every frame of our application. If you want to control that a little bit, you can say fixed update, which says we're going to pin this to 60 times per second, which has double benefits. One, it adds consistency across all your people playing your game. So as long as they have a GPU that is capable of maintaining 60 frames a second for your game, everybody will be on an equal playing field from a frame rate perspective. But it also makes the resource requirements for your application less because you're only having to process stuff 60 times every second instead of hundreds of times per second, a couple hundred times per second if somebody has a really beefy graphics card. So you're not very energy efficient. Talked about triggers versus collisions. Triggers don't have physics associated with it. Collisions do. We talked about rigid bodies. This is our way of supporting mass, where these our game objects actually, have weight, have mass to them, and can interact with other things if we so choose. Okay, so what I want to do here, let's go into Unity, and I don't remember if I'm in a. Do I have another? Oh man, I can't see any of this. Can I make this bigger? Whatever. That's my scripts. Do I have a scenes? Oh, I just have the one scene. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just drop in a floor. I must not have saved before. Apologies. So I'll drop in my floor. We'll name that guy floor. Then I'll go ahead and I'm gonna drop in our player. We'll make him a sphere. So this is our player, and he's sitting in the middle of the floor. I will bring his position up to 0.5. That'll have him because his scale is 1. So 0.5 will bring, because half of his body is sitting in the floor right now. So 0.5 will bring him halfway up to be perfectly sitting. If you've noticed, what happens, how many of you have played Super Mario Brothers anytime recently, where you remember the game a little bit? Or Mega Man is another good example. In fact, Mega Man's a great example. How many of you have played Mega Man? Oh my gosh. Just so bad. No, here, let's so I'm gonna show Mega Man here because it is um a more obvious example of the situation. Um, there's this. Oh, I want Mega Man original. I want you to see the way something works. All right, maybe this will show me. All right, so all right, pay attention to this. He's going to start the game. We're looking at the very beginning of when he first comes into a level. All right, so we just saw it. When the level first started there, what happened? Came from the sky. So he has a collider on him, right? And rather than try to get him perfectly leveled, they have him drop in and just let his object collide with the ground. Now he's sitting on the ground. Super Mario Brothers does the same thing, except less obvious. Like Mega Man here just starts off you don't see him at all, right? Where Mario usually he starts like, I don't know, 2 Marios above the ground or something like that and drops down just a little bit, but it makes it so you don't have to handle that. Now, but you got to keep in mind that that's the mentality we should think of that through. Back in Super Mario Brother days, they didn't have game engines. So all that physics, or not that Mario had major physics, but anything that it does do, that was written by hand, even if it was their own game engine-y type thing. So if they try to recreate something like gravity, which obviously Super Mario Brothers, as well as Mega Man, has, right? Because there's a lot of you jump and you're operating as if gravity has effect on Mario. When he jumps, he then comes back down, right? So whether it's a perfect rendition of gravity or not, it's a consistent rendition because that's the skill, right? Um, I saw I think it was a meme or something sometimes recently with which is kind of I guess interesting. You know how older folks call your generation lazy and all this stuff, blah blah blah. And there might be some truth to just how the world has given us too much technology that we've just all been reliant on. And you grew up during that time period. I saw a thing that kind of talked about my generation kind of hitting the jackpot. I'm young enough that that the internet and stuff was born when I was still in my learning process. So the internet probably so I was born 1978. So I lived through all the old stuff. I had the corded phones, the analog everything. Dial-up didn't even exist when I was younger. Internet wasn't a thing. So I lived through that whole time period. But when the internet became a thing, I was like in my mid-teens. So I was still young enough and interested enough that I was able to adopt that new technology quickly when maybe older folks at that time, we see older folks today being averse to new tech. So I kind of hit the lottery there from my age group that I was born during a time where I appreciated um, critical thinking because it was required when you lived in an analog world. And then I was able to really value what a computer did to me and keep chasing ways for it to make your life easier. Um, but in any case, the meme I saw that was related to this that flips it over is, today, your teachers or who older people might say, oh, you spend too much time playing these video games. You should be working on other stuff, yada, 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 right? The whole video game addiction thing. But then they show a picture of Mario sitting on the edge of one of these like almost impossible jumps. You know what I'm talking about? Like in that game where, there's like jumps that are just completely impossible. In fact, I think actually now there's a Mario world builder type thing where one of the things people do is try to make levels that are not beatable or something. I had a student a couple years ago try to do that. I couldn't beat it. But in any case, the meme shows, you standing on this like impossibly thin thing and you have to make this crazy jump. And it's like, we're complaining about, young people today being addicted to video games. Like, but I spent 2 weeks trying to make this one jump. And those are true statements. I kind of remember my brother and I sitting there for hours just trying to make one jump. That's a waste of time, is it not? Yeah, we're complaining about you. What?
They have entire competitions where it's like, it's just a crazy thing to go do, but if you look up Kaizo Mario level, those things are just.
They're just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you people will spend years trying to train just to get it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I had normal, hey, in my neighborhood, I was decent at Mario. I had that I was that level of skill set. Very much local competition. I didn't move up to the regional level. But that was back in the days. Any of you ever seen the movie The Wizard? Or just Wizard, I think it's called, with Fred Savage in it. See, you heard of Super Mario Brothers 3? That game? That game was announced in that movie. So that movie was about this little kid who's a video game savant, and they're traveling to the World Championships. So they all go through the tournament. He gets to the end, and they all are playing a game they've never seen before. Comes up. That was the introduction of Super Mario Brothers 3. I played Mario 3 in the arcade. Was that a thing? They did. Original Mortal Kombat in the arcade, that was super popular in the arcade. Killer Instinct, super popular in the arcade. All right. So, anyways, I dropped this guy in here. If you were looking at this from our perspective of like Mega Man, we might here, let me make sure I have the we have to get our camera. Where's my camera? All right, so another skill, sometimes your things you lose them. Double click on it, it'll bring it back to, somewhere near reality. You could kind of put it, where you want, but I usually just kind of, get it. I just change the views up here, so I'm looking at it for the different angles. This is just a skill you end up just getting over time. Just get more and more comfortable with it. It's just whatever. All right. So I don't need to set up professional audio. All right, so I'll go ahead and play on this. We'll see that right now. I don't think it's going to do anything. Okay. So we have our light. That's why we have the shadow. If you want to add performance to your game, turn the shadows off, blah, 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 whatever. But we're going to leave them on because it looks cool. What do I do to make this guy be able to fall out of the sky? Let's start off. Go ahead.
Rigid body?
Rigid body. So we're going to take our, remember, stop your game before you start adding stuff to it because then it won't remember what you added. Of course, I've never done that, so it's a warning for you. All right, so we'll go down here to add components. Rigid body was already selected, but That's gonna be a pretty common one, so just start off typing RI. Pick a rigid body. Make sure you're always picking the normal things, not the 2D versions of them. Just a thing. All right, so now I have a rigid body on this guy. Use gravity is selected by default, so I won't touch anything. We'll go ahead and hit play. This guy now drops and he lands. We just did Mega Man and well, we probably did Mario intro. We saw him the whole time. Mega Man would drop in from a much higher level and blah blah blah. Plus, he kind of came in ninja style, right? So we can do any of that stuff. Now, why were these guys able to run into each other? I mean, we just put a rigid body in just now with gravity. Why didn't the guy just pass right through? We have to look at our individual objects. So our floor, that 3D thing we put in there, that's not an empty game object. Remember, when we put an empty game object in here, that guy operates kind of like almost like a folder for us. He doesn't have any visualness. If you click on that guy, we see that a generic game object, the lowest level game object we have in here, like Java's object, only has a transform where a transform keeps track of a game object's position, scale, and rotation. Each of those is a vector 3, which is 3 variables, x, y, z. Just sounds fancy because it's a vector. All right, so that's what comes with the generic game object. But if we look at floor, which we've put in here, but we haven't touched it, right? We just dropped it in there. I maybe moved it a little bit. I don't remember, but we just dropped it in there. We added nothing to it, but look at all the stuff it comes with. It comes with that transform. But we would say that our game object was a plane. A floor was a plane. So the type of object it was is a plane. And that we would say that guy extends game object. So he gets everything the game object has. We see that here. It's a transform, right? And then he gets additional stuff that gives him his planeness. Yeah, let's go with that. All right. So we see here it has this plain mesh filter. That's for this is all visual stuff. Anything that says render on it. Mesh filter, I think, is a smoothness thing because it has to create the mesh for the collider to connect to. Let's call it 65% certainty on that. Mesh renderer, though, this is how it shows up on the screen. So if we just click this box right here, we'll see that the ground disappears. But if we go ahead and hit play, you see the ground's still there. All right. So when we turn the renderer off, we don't see it, but it's still a thing. Make sense? And that's going to come into play. Like, for instance, when you did the tutorial thing, you had to destroy game objects, if I'm remembering correctly, right? When your guy bumped into one of the little diamond things that were spinning, when you hit it, you destroyed that game object, right? So there's different ways. If you want if you have things that are being collected, you have different approaches, right? So this is kind of what's cool about a tool like Unity. Your job is to make the end user feel like the game is doing what they expect it to do. It doesn't matter how you're accomplishing that, right? Like you could say, okay, I have a chessboard, for example, and somebody, takes one of your pieces, the pawn or something like that. Well, you could say, I'm going to destroy that pawn. And then when they start a new game, you have to regenerate all your game objects. But the game objects and stuff that you're going to have on your chessboard, right? Every chess game starts off with the same pieces, right? So it would make sense to only create those pieces one time, because in real life, when somebody takes your pawn, you usually put it over on the side of the board and on their side or something. They've got one of your pieces, but yet you get it off the board, right? Put it to the side. So can't we do the same thing? We could say, oh, well, let's just lift that guy up. Let's put him over the side and put him back down. Let's keep looking at him. Let's see him. Or if we just want to see like a count, take advantage of digital, we could move him over to the side, like way out of the way, and just make him disappear, or just take him out off camera. You don't have to make him. What?
I have a very quick question. I apologize for
Yeah,
interrupting.
go ahead.
So if I wanted to, for example, pretty much make an object that I have on my, you know, my game here transparent, I could just turn off the mesh rendering so that
Turn
way
off
it's
the
still
render.
physically there, but people just can't see it.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
yep. Now, so in any case, just consider that there isn't like a right way of doing many things. It will be a your way of doing many things. And as long as the end user doesn't is no wiser, who cares? Right? I mean, when something gets killed, on your game or whatever, you could just make it disappear and throw it 100 feet straight up in the sky. Right? And then when the game needs to start over again, you hit reset, you just turn gravity back on. Everything drops back down onto the thing. Hopefully you built into the object, you keep track of its location. This is actually a really good idea. Let's do something like this. Okay, because that's going to be related to kind of the things that we're doing here. Um, so um, so in any case, and a good way of messing with this stuff as well, you can hit play on something like this. So the game is running, and you can come over here and you can like click on the floor. I can turn the mesh renderer back on, so you can mess with it while it's still running and see what behaviors things will have. You can move the position of stuff and things like that. But then what you want to do is before you stop the game, come over here and either copy the whole component. So here you can copy the whole component, which will get the whole transform, or you can get just the scale, rotation, or position. You could do the same thing with any component, I believe. Well, you can't do it with a renderer. Can you do it with a collider? Yeah, you can copy the component for a collider. But in any case, if you're going to move stuff around during the game, which I encourage you to do, why should you calculate where stuff should go if you rather than just say, hey, I'm going to drag it to where I want it to be? Then I'm going to copy its location or copy the whole component. I'll paste it onto it for where it should be. Now, poof, it's in the right place. All right. Another trick is having locations marked out on the map, like important spots, have them mapped out with empty game objects. We can't see them. They don't interact with anything because it doesn't have any stuff. There's no colliders or anything like that, but they still exist. They are a game object. They have a location. So nothing keeps us from bringing those guys into one of our mono behaviors through a public field. And now we know the location of a transform that we might want to put something at. And we can actually use that game object as a top level folder and add our stuff to it as a child. And then it'll just move us to it and put our position relative to its position. So our position is always the internet may have died. Hold on, we're resharing. The recording seems like it's still on though. So let's just hope for the best. Yeah, it says pause recording. What do you think? Should I just leave it going or should I pause it and restart it?
Keep it going.
You think keep it going is going to give you the best chance of success? It looks like it worked out okay.
Yeah, it froze for a second, but all's good now.
Okay. Well, it did more than freeze on our side. It reconnected to Zoom on our side. Okay. Well, if everybody's happy now, we'll just keep going. It looks like it's still recording. Yeah, so in any case, one of the skills you're going to get as you start messing around with Unity is you're going to start finding little tricks for doing things like that. But keep in mind that you have these empty game objects, and yes, you can use them as folders to hold collections of things that have names. So you don't have a zillion game objects over here on the left as you start getting a more complex project. But you can also use them as placeholders for locations. Very handy use. Did the tutorial have you do anything like that? Placeholder stuff? Like to move something to a defined location? So here, let me stop the game, hide floating controls. All right, stop. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, okay, I already have this game object. We're gonna zoom in on that. Actually, hold on, just for the sake of, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna right click. One of the bad things about an empty game object is you can't see an empty game object. So just for the moment, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw a cube underneath connected to that game object. So this cube is at location 000 relative to its parent. And its parent is this game object. So when I double click on this, it takes me to this empty game object that has a cube hanging off of it. Does that make sense? Now I have something visual to move around when I put it in position. Then I can delete my cube, right? Um, so I'll go ahead and, what is this stopping? Huh. Oh, what does it want me to do? Hold. I don't want to pause. Oh, why? Oh. Okay, I'm just going to play it and then we're going to stop it. All right, nailed it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double click on this cube. It'll take me to the same place as the game object. If I double click on the game object, now I don't really know where we are relative to the world here. So I'm going to zoom out here and I'm going to go above. I'm going to zoom out even more. All right, here is, oh, I don't have my floor on right now. So let's go ahead and turn our mesh renderer back for our floor. That's going to be a handy situation for us. All right, so here's our game object over here. We can see it by the cube. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this. Notice the cube comes with it because it's hung underneath it. It's a child of that game object. All right. Oh, that's why things were so silent. Coffee got kicked out. Oh man,
I'm back.
so nice. You guys felt the tranquility, right?
Ah, very funny.
It was. It was silent. It was. Jeez. All right. So in any case, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this guy positioned, somewhere over. Okay, we see it. We see him moving into the scene now. All right, so he's in the scene now. I can get this thing sideways. I can zoom back in on him. So now I'm close. Let me go back above. All right. So here, I'm going to put this guy kind of over in one of these corners. All right. Now, if you really wanted to, if this cube helps you, so when you need to see where the hot spots are, you can. That's no problem, right? You can come into this cube and you can say, now, if I turn off the mesh render for this cube, now you don't see it anymore. Is that good enough? Tell me why not. If the purpose of this is I want to know a location relative to this game object. I want to know what his position is on the screen. I want to know that he's at -17 and -32. That's where he's located on in the world, right? Now I could remember those two numbers, right? I can write them down or whatever. But now that then means that that's what those numbers always are. I can't just like, oh, well, my guy's not quite far enough into the corner, so I'm just going to move my game object down, and the rest of my logic already says go where that guy is. We'll just go there. All right. So you probably want to have the ability to turn him off. But if we go to this cube and we disable his mesh render, he is still there. We just can't see him. We want it to be as if he is not there, but we want to be able to bring him back easily. Now, is it really that big of a deal for us to delete the cube? And then when we want, if we need to move the game object, we can just add another cube to it or something like that. That's not the end of the world. So if we delete this cube, now we just have this empty game object, but you see when we click on it, we can move it around. We can find it because it's now in our scene. So this isn't the end of the world. We can position him however we want. But if we really liked having that cube on there, we can always right click, add our cube back in, and now we have a cube there. And if you want that cube to still be there as an option, but not necessarily have any impact, we can come up here to this checkbox and that disables him. So now it's as if he's not in the scene. We just have him still kind of loaded up in case we want to see him. And we see it go gray there underneath the stuff over there. So try to keep your stuff as organized as possible, knowing that I typically am not very good at organization. So my examples may not be as organized as you should be. I won't take points off. What I'm really saying is it will be in your best interest to stay organized, because chances are some of you are going to get very interested in this and want to make something bigger. Stay organized so you can make something bigger and keep yourself sane. All right. So, so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and make a script, and we're going to have a situation where that our sphere will move to the location where that game object is. All right. So we are going to, I'm lost. Okay, here's my scripts folder. I'll right click in there and I'm going to create a new, notice by default it's called a mono behavior script. Does it let us make a different kind of script? Ooh, just an empty C# script. That's new or newish. Anyways, I always make a mono behavior script, so that's what we're going to do. All right, we're going to call this guy move example. Man, why is that text so small? Move example. And we're going to put that on our player. So here's our player over here. We can either go and add component and find our script, or we can just drag this script over to this guy. And add that script in there. All right, so now we want to go and work on this script. So let's double click, move on the script. Is this at least going to have big font? Huh. I can read that. All right. How come you guys stopped turning the lights off? You can see that from back there? Huh? I don't care what you do. At some point, someone was hitting the lights. You're gonna fall asleep anyways. It's at 10 a.m. right now. Well, I wanted to make it early, remember? Coding 1's at 8. I tried to make it at 6. The registrar yelled at me. No, the first no, 8:05 is the first thing they'll let you do, unless there's a really like something with athletics or something, or oh my gosh.
Oh. And my favorite, I sent an email, right? I sent an email.
To who?
Who wanted to, I was up at 6:04, so that wasn't me, I was procrastinating. I was taking care of a project.
Oh, the diarrhea email was that?
No,
I thought that was from last night.
no, I didn't have. Thank
Oh, well, that must have been someone else. You'd be shocked how often I get diarrhea emails. It's my own fault, because I've coached students before that if you ever need to get out of something, that's a very, I mean, you can't abuse that excuse, but like your grandparents can only die so many times, right? But you can have diarrhea often. I mean, people get stomach problems. So if you ever need a day off of work, you're just not feeling it, when you call your boss up with that as an excuse, you will have a minimum number of questions to answer as a response. They're not going to ask you questions for details. I ask questions for details, but I don't know that I did it, but I think it's a good idea if you really need to get out of something.
Theoretically, it's a good idea. Never tested it.
It's like you just blame it on Sodexo. Your subject is Sodexo, pictures incoming.
No, because people post on React, like the chicken tenders and how they break it open, it's just straight paint.
Oh, yeah.
There was one picture like that, but I still ate the chicken.
Yeah, how do you build up your immune system if you're not eating partially raw chicken?
Sorry, I think the assignments, Dexo is bad. Picture attachment.
That's how I build up my immune system. I buy 75% off potato salad and then eat on it for a month. Yeah. Well, they had chicken tenders Tuesday, I think. They were pretty good. No, chicken nuggets.
They're good. But afterwards, it ain't so good.
Oh, you haven't built up your immune system. I can digest almost anything. I could join the raccoons in the dumpster and I'll be just fine.
Wait, off.
4 a.m, the cops come up to a dumpster due to a noise complaint. It's me and like 80 raccoons. Like, I found the chocolate bars, guys. All right, so what we want to do here is we're messing around with our move script. Now, this script is currently attached to our player, right? So inside this script, if we say, what language am I? Self? No, this is this, right? So if I say this, I am talking about the game object that owns this instance of, I'm talking about this instance of mono behavior, but by way of this instance of mono behavior, if I get his game object, that is the game object that this guy is attached to. So in our case here, this is the player. Now, there's actually, and this kind of is a kickback to some of the things I don't like about Python. There's multiple ways of doing simple things where there doesn't really need to be multiple ways. So for instance, I can say this.gameObject.transform, and that gives me the whole transform component. And if I want just position, I can say dot position. But I can also do this.transform.position, and that's going to give me the same value. So this.transform says, I mean, just by looking at this from the skills we've already learned, what is this? So this keyword in C# means the same as in Java, right? It's how an object points to itself from within itself. So now what's transform here? Forget about what the word says and your ability to guess at what kind of animal it is, in terms of the specifics, but the word transform here, what kinds of things live inside of classes? All classes are made up of 3 things. What are those 3 things? Methods. Methods and functions are the same thing. Tactically object-oriented, for trivia, they're called methods. Older languages, they're called functions or procedures. The reality is nobody cares. They mean the same thing. Functions, methods. Okay, so we have functions and methods. Those are one thing, that type of thing lives in there. What else lives inside of objects? What are they called for object-oriented programming? The variables at the top. Every program has variables around it, but the variables at the top are called what? Well, constructors are our 3rd thing. Those aren't the variables. All right, now you're just making crap up. All right, there are 3 things. Shut up! There are 3 things that live inside of a class. Constructors, methods. What's the 3rd thing? What's the name of those top variables at the top of the class? Fields. Okay, so every class contains 3 things. Okay, fields, constructors, and methods. Okay, now import statements and stuff are fine. Namespaces are fine, but those aren't always there. You don't always have to import extra stuff. You don't always have to be part of a namespace. Every single class has the opportunity for there to be 0 or more fields, 0 or more constructors, 0 or more methods. How can you possibly have 0 constructors? Remind me, because you guys listen so well. If I make a class that has no constructors, that will compile and it will work. But how is that accomplished? Go ahead.
I can't remember how it's accomplished.
That's the best way to start out answering a question. I can't remember. It's like that Lego movie with the super guy. It's like, okay, I think I got it, but could you say it all again? All right, go ahead.
The, since you said something, I forgot my train of thought, but I did have.
A mediocre or worse answer.
Yes.
The question was if you write a class that has no constructor,
A simpleton,
you say simpleton.
whatever the thing's called.
All right, fine. We're gonna let it slide this time.
Simpleton.
Okay. No offense, coffee.
Wait, what did I do?
This guy gets it. Oh man. See, this guy gets it. I think you meant singleton,
Yes.
right? Also the wrong answer.
Oh my god.
Hold on, you're just gonna dig. Oh, you got something? All right, what's an abstract class? Tell me about that.
It's one that, don't implement it, but other things inherit it.
Okay. An abstract class is a class that you can't create an instance of because, yeah, I mean, you were right. Yeah, it's a class you can't create an instance of, as opposed to you don't create an instance of it. It won't let you. And then the other side is it exists for the purpose of inheritance, to support inheritance, and it polices it. Not related to this question, but that's also a true statement for classes. If you have a class that you intend to only use to support inheritance, you would make it abstract. Okay, but what we're talking about here is a class that has no constructor. If I write a class that has no constructor,
An abstract class have it.
sure. Well, so you asked the question, why? The question for online people was, can an abstract class still have a constructor? And I would suggest that an abstract class usually has a constructor. Why would an abstract class have a constructor?
I was asking you, so.
Well, I have forgotten,
Oh,
as most of you have. So I feel like you're going to have to help me out here. You got nothing? Abstract classes are made to build inheritance on, right? So just because you're not going to directly create an instance of that class, you want to finish?
Well, you can still reference things.
Yeah. The children of that class may call the parent's constructor to do some of the initial setup and then do the rest of the stuff. So just because you're never calling that constructor yourself by instantiated that class because it's not allowed if it's abstract, that constructor still could be utilized by the child classes. Make some sense? Now, do you see why we talk about this stuff over and over again? Because it's not sticking. It's not sticking in there. You guys are lucky I didn't forget about that one.
Thought you were gonna say because you care about us, but
Oh, come on, that ship has sailed. This guy gets it.
smiling and nodding. I'll take it.
All right. Oh, so I was going to show you an example here. So let's say that we have a class and we're not dealing with abstract stuff. We just have a plain Jane class that has no constructor in it. All right. So here we're going to call the class plain Jane. Plain Jane, spelled that way. That's what I called my class. Are you questioning me? Sometimes I use cool variables. I had my first programming class I ever took in college. I think I was 11, and I was taking a coding class, C++ class. You shut up. You show up to class, you sit here and babble, and those are actually the smartest things I've heard you say in that conversation right there. No, what you were just saying, that sounded intelligent, sort of. So anyways, my first coding class that I took out of college was we had a junior college near our house called Parkland. Parkland Junior College in Champaign, Illinois. And so my the guy who was like tutoring me in upper math and stuff at the time was a professor at University of Illinois. So he got me into this class, just said, look, he knows what he's doing. They're like, he's a little kid, it's fine. So I'm in this class and the teacher was just an idiot. And he's up there saying, oh, real programmers, we name all our variables using Gothic variable names or something like that. This guy was weird. Yeah, I don't know what he was talking about. I'm trying to think who I was making fun of. It had to be you, Coffee.
Wait, what?
When I thought about this incompetent professor and some of the crap he said,
Oh, well, I'm not.
in that light, you don't seem as bad, really. All right, so let's assume I have a class called Plain Jane that I happen to give a cool class name for a flare. Flare. All right, and we'll call this guy PJ. All right, and we're going to say new Plain Jane, and I do that. If I have a class named Plain Jane that I did not put a constructor in, this syntax will still work. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves, this is almost a chicken or the egg problem. Remind me, what's the new keyword? Okay, it's a real estate agent goes and gets memory, negotiates with the operating system for us and brings us back a plot of land that's big enough for us to use. It's the equivalent of, I don't know what we have looked at other languages, alloc or malloc, memory allocate, or just allocate, yada, 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 whatever. All right, so it goes and gets this memory. Now, what always, and I mean always, comes after the new keyword? I want to go down the bad answer. Okay, tell me more about method.
Well, if I'm being completely honest.
You just said the first thing that came to mind.
Well, no, I was looking at the parentheses and that's what I usually see method have.
Okay. So she looked at it, saw parentheses, decided, okay, that's either a method or constructor. Those are the only two animals that have parentheses, right? Now, how can you differentiate between a method and a constructor?
A constructor doesn't return.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so we're looking at telltale signs, right? So constructors always have the same name as a class. Well, in most languages. In this language, so C#, Java, C++. What about C? Does the class name always have the same name as the constructor, or the constructor always have the same class name in C? What's the answer? Yeah, how many times do I have to trip you up on this question? C is a procedural language. It's not an object-oriented language. There isn't constructors. There aren't classes. What?
I think I know the answer.
To which question? Okay, why do we know it's constructor? Well, but we're seeing it. No, that's not. So he said there's no return type. Well, now that gets us back to the world of, are we looking at code being used or being defined? Right? Right here, we are looking at the Plain Jane class. I know it has the red squigglies under it because I didn't actually write that class, right? But we're going to pretend like I wrote class Plain Jane, open curly brace, closing curly brace. It's legally a class, but it has nothing in it, including no constructor. All right. That would be the point where I am defining the class, where I might be defining a constructor. That's where we would look at and say, oh, there's no return type on that, and it still is working. Therefore, it must be a constructor. All right. A method always has a return type. That return type might be void, right? And this is we're talking C# specifically here, as well as Java, as well as C++. All of our strongly typed, compiled, general purpose programming languages, methods or functions, whatever you want to call them, always have return types. Okay, you get to languages like Python or a lot of our scripting languages that are loosely typed. A loosely typed language, even though Python does allow this actually. Python, which I don't know if it's a help or a hurt. Most loosely typed languages, by definition, don't have types. They infer the type during runtime. All right. Well, so what does that mean? That means that it has to figure out what that return type is. But languages like Python have started allowing you to put return types in. Why do you think that is? Why are they allowing you to put return types in for Python now? You're taking some pressure off their type inference engine by you supplying the type. Why do you think that might be helpful to take some pressure off the Python interpreter to allow it to tell it this is the type this variable holds? Makes it faster. It's having to do less extra work. Okay. And I wonder if anybody's doing this. It shouldn't. I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, why isn't someone building a Python interpreter in a processor? So yeah, it's an interpreted language, but the program is written in hardware, or even a programmable controller like an Arduino or something like that. Although you get the speed, you get more speed. All right. Well, so any case, so this becomes a chicken or the egg type thing. This syntax has to work for this programming language to be complete. We have to be able to get memory. And when we're getting memory, we have to tell it, what are we building? So we can do that as a constructor. We can say, I'm building an array, which is basically the same thing as constructor. It's, hey, here's what I want. I want an integer array with 20 buckets, something like that. All right. Or if you're building a list or one of the other things built on an array list or something, that's also a constructor you're calling. So constructors always have the same name as the class in C#. They always, when you're using them, come after the new keyword. And if you're looking at their definition, they won't have a return type. Whereas methods or functions always have a return type. They never come after the new keyword. So if you see the new keyword there, it's a constructor. All right. But that's good. So the compliment here, I mean, I'm digging, but the compliment here is the fact that you said I saw parentheses and what was in my head was function-like things. Okay. As opposed to if it's not a function, it's not a constructor, it must be which are called in fields. Fields. Okay. Trust me, it's important you keep those things straight in your head, because when you go look at the documentation and you see the word fields and it lists all the fields, you have to know what that means. These are things owned by instances of the class, unless those fields are static, in which case they're owned by the class itself. All right. So classes are made up of fields, constructors, and methods. If you do not put a constructor in a class, a no argument constructor, that is a constructor that takes no parameters and does nothing except call the parent. They'll just say super at the top. You won't see it, but that's what it's doing. It's calling the parent to build itself in terms of who its parent is. And what if you don't give it a parent? What if you don't extend it from anything? Who is its parent? Top level object, right? So every object-oriented language has a top level object that is the equivalent to our top level game object here in Unity. And a top level object is going to have whatever is the minimum set of things that is required for you to have your objectness, something along those lines. All right. So that if you don't provide a constructor, it will give you a empty constructor that you won't see, but it'll be there to support this syntax, the usage syntax. It'll give you a no argument constructor that will build this class in the image of its parent, which if you don't give it, like right now, we have our classes its parent is a mono behavior whose parent, I don't know whose parent mono behavior is. We can go and dive and look at it. Mono behavior. Just tell me where this guy comes from. Oh, this is interesting. As I'm sitting here just driving home that they're called fields, actually in C# they're called properties. Just garbage. They're fields. Object orientedness is fields. This was from a lawsuit. This was a lawsuit that resulted in Sun Microsystems, or actually at the time, it was Microsoft who tried to steal Java. Microsoft had to come out with C#, so they basically had to change all the words to mean the same thing but say different things. All right, we're looking at trying to see where this guy came from. So this is implemented in Unity core module. Oh, here it is. So mono behavior inherits from something called a behavior. A behavior inherits from something called a component. A component inherits from object. So a mono behavior is a behavior, which is a component, which is an object. All right. So when you create an instance of it, it gets created in terms of its lineage. Okay. It passes the buck. It says, Pops, help me build an instance of myself. And then he'll do whatever is required after that. All right. So when I build this syntax here requires that a constructor must always exist in a class. So even if you don't provide one because you didn't learn object-oriented programming correctly and you just decided you're going to have all your fields be public and you just set them directly, basically you use classes as if they're structs, which is fine if you're just writing your own crap, but it's not good programming practice. So for the syntax to function. All right. Now, what did I have in here before? Let me put my stuff back here. All right. So tell me, what is this thing called transform here? Is that a method? Is it a constructor? Or is it a field? It's a field. How do you know? No parentheses. Therefore, it can't be one of the other two, right? So it must be a field. What about position?
Well, it's actually
Why is it a method? What do you see on that makes you think it's a method?
Well, it doesn't have parentheses, but from when we were doing our like math assignment, position is like we can pretty much input values like X, Y, and Z to like
Okay. Oh, so I'm gonna say that actually is a good non-stupid. I mean, it's still stupid, but it's a good.
semi-intelligent.
You notice the behavior. It's a good that is interesting, and it actually has to do with C# properties. So properties in C#, which we're going to continue to call fields, do have convenient. You've heard us talk about getters and setters before, right? Okay. So it has convenience functionality built into it. So as you're building it, you technically can set the values at the same time as you're creating it. So you are correct that you technically can set the position by giving it a vector 3 that has the 3 values. So really it's the vector 3 that is the constructor. So still it's like half stupid. All right. Right. So this is a field that is held by a transform, right? So a position 3, so if we hover over transform here, we see that a transform is a component dot transform. We know a transform is position, rotation, and scale. So we know that position will be a vector 3. So transform is a vector 3, is it not? We hold 3 things. So what are the kinds of things that a transform holds? It holds 3 things. I just said it a minute ago.
Yeah.
Okay, scale, position, rotation. So when we create a transform needs 3 inputs to exist, right? What kinds of inputs does it take? X, Y, and Z. And what's a more correct way of saying that in Unity world? What is an X, Y, and Z, a single thing that holds a collection of X, Y, and Z called? Well, position is one of those, yes, but I'm talking about something that exists inside the language that we use all over the place when we need to store an X, Y, and Z value. A vector 3. All right, so vector 3s. So what a transform holds is it holds 3 vector 3s. What is a vector 3? What do each of the, so a transform is a vector 3 whose values are vector 3s. Each of those vector 3s are X, Y, and Z coordinates for either position, for scale, or for rotation. All right, but here's what I was saying. This is a little bit of a Python-esque type thing where there's actually 2 ways of getting at your position or your transform. And I've kind of shown the 2 ways here. Which way here do you think is the more correct way? Oh, we're in our last minute. I'm going to tell you which is the more correct way. Well, okay, one of them is more correct than the other. You can decide whether it's as correct as you want it to be. This second one is nonsensical. This is Python-esque syntactic sugar. This, in this case, is an instance of mono behavior. Mono behaviors do not have transforms. Mono behaviors are scripts that hang off a game object. Game objects have transforms, but they've given us a facility for this dot to talk about the transform here, because at some level up the line, it's a game object. We traced it up. Remember we saw that? So it technically has a transform that is in it, but that transform only exists because of the inheritance model. Where really, when we're in here and we're talking about a transform, we're talking about the game object that this particular mono behavior is hanging on, and we want that game object's transform. Make some sense? All right. Do you want a homework assignment over the weekend? All right, so I want you to think about all the stuff we talked about today, because there may be an in-class quiz worth a homework assignment on Tuesday. That means attendance on Tuesday would be nice if you want to get graded for the homework assignments coming up, covering just what we talked about in class today. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes? I don't know. Open note. What?
Are you saying that like pretty much the top level is gonna be, it's not, yeah, it's the